Hey, Renter Retires. It's Adam Schroeder here for another episode of our podcast. And today we are going to be talking about what is happening in the mortgage market. And for that, we are joined by one of our favorite lenders, and that is Graham and Aaron with Highlands Mortgage. Gentlemen, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Well, it's a pretty crazy time for real estate investors. It's a very, very good time for a lot of us. I've been seeing some things out there though, saying that, starts are slowing, rates are rising, people are a little bit concerned. What are y'all seeing on the mortgage side in terms of what's coming in? How are rates fluctuating right now? Just kind of what's the general feeling inside the market right now?
Well, let me back up a bit. Let's start from the beginning of this year. We just came off a crazy year back last year with the COVID rates, if you will, we refer to, and they hit the all-time bottom. I mean, we were down into the low threes on investment properties. It was crazy. Sometimes dip below twos. And then probably February, new administration came in, started seeing some inflation, and of course, inflation always pushes up the rates. So we started seeing some increase in rates. We probably got up into about the mid threes at that point. And
ridiculous.
So we were there up until March. And then in March, the government decided to do something that did make a lot of sense. And they decided to throttle the industry back for all the originators, that they can only originate no more than 7% of the total pie. And it was like trying to stop a locomotive train within a very short period of time. It was impossible. And the industry was averaging about 16%, and they wanted to get us down to 7%, and within like 2 months, and just nobody could make it. So, we didn't, at the end of May, I think we came in around 10%, and that's because we just completely stopped shipping to Fannie on the investor properties. Other firms, I'm not sure where they landed. A lot of firms stopped doing it altogether. And then about, what was the date, Aaron? You know the date better than I, when they came back and said, okay, this is stupid.
I want to say that was September 15th, I believe.
15th.
Correct off the top
so
of the head.
The FHFA and the Treasury got together, because we have a new chairman on the FHFA, and she said, okay, this doesn't make sense. So we went back to normal, which has been that way since Aaron's date you just mentioned. Mm-hmm. But in the last week and a half, I guess we're starting to see rates creep a bit. I'd say they probably crept 150 basis points, which relates to about an 1/8 to almost a quarter in rate. But we're still in a very favorable interest rate environment. I mean, we're still locking rates on 20% down at 4% with no points, which is still very favorable. You get 25% down, you're at 3.625 with no points. Now, this could vary from one lender to the next, but that seems to be where we are these days. I suspect, and I listen to a lot of economic figures, and there's a lot of things going on right now with China, and they're a huge investor here in the States with Shearson, not Shearson, was Zach. Anyway, one of the big Wall Street investors, and so they're starting to have some tension there, and so I think we're going to start seeing a little more inflation that's going to have an effect between now and year end. So I suspect maybe another 1/8 to a quarter, it may go up. And then next year, I don't know, maybe another 1/8 to a quarter. But I think for the most part, we're probably going to land somewhere in the mid fours, which in the whole scheme of things is not bad.
That's pre-COVID rate, essentially. That's all that is.
That's exactly where we were pre-COVID. Hell, pre-COVID, we were probably locking somewhere in the low fives at that point. Mm-hmm. And people were ecstatic to get, 5%. It's just some of the newbies, if you will, that obviously you and I work with, they don't remember those rates. I've been working in this industry for 24 years, and you talk to one of my veterans out there that's got multiple doors, and he's always said, any investor rate below 7 is still a good rate. And that's still true today. Heck, I remember locking at 7 3/4 back when I was investing back 15 years ago. So we're still in a very interest rate environment that's very, very favorable. If obviously the inventory can, start to increase, which, we're starting to see the building get a little bit better. If we can get some of the labor issues resolved, some of the material issues resolved, we'll start getting to more build. Now, Biden, he is pro real estate. He is wanting to increase the low to mod income housing, which is good. But the forbearance piece, if that ever makes full circle, that there's more inventory that can come out on the streets, where the turnkey providers that you guys work with can grab those and rehab them and sell them to more investors. So, the inventory right now is the biggest challenge. It's not really the rates. It's not really getting loans.
Yeah.
We're doing them all day long. We're not having any problems.
Yeah. So I want to touch on that. I was seeing an article that came out just in the last few days where they were talking about how forbearance, it was going up, not necessarily going up, but not going down. Like they were hoping that it was like 3.5% of loans were still in forbearance. Can y'all touch on kind of what y'all see happening with forbearance right now? Like, how are people getting out of it? Are people getting out of it still? And if we do see that coming, will that impact the ability to loan or the rates that we're going to be seeing?
No, I think what the administration is trying to do is trying to force all the loan servicers to try to do everything they can to keep those people in their houses.
Yep.
Okay. If they have to extend the forbearance, it's coming up on 2 years now, or put them into a modification, or do whatever they can. And the CFPB, which is the one of the police, if you will, that governs our industry, is really starting to crack down on the service and say, you have checks and balances you need to do, and this is what you need to do to keep these people in the houses. And so we have a servicing arm as well for our company. So, they're very much in trying to make this thing work as much as possible, but I don't think it can last forever. And when it does, let's say the forbearance ends, these people have the choice to either pay up or get out. But if you remember back in 2008, getting those people out sometimes took more than 2 years. So I'd be honest with you, I just don't have the answer. I don't have the answer for that one.
I've been saying it since the beginning. As soon as they started the forbearance plan, I've been saying, back in the Great Recession, the problem was caused by the people. So the government was kind of like, you caused the problem, you lied, you're
Right.
out. But this time, they're the reason that you can't stay in your house currently. So they're going to do everything in their power to keep you in there. So that's good to hear. So are y'all seeing, how are y'all at 3.5% in terms of loans and forbearance, or kind of what is y'all's current portfolio looking like?
I wish you would have asked me these questions beforehand. I could have relayed that to you. I could always reach out and send you that information, but I would have to ask my servicing manager. I just don't keep in touch with that.
Yeah.
We're more on the origination side. Once the loan funds, it goes into the servicing side, and we really don't have a lot to do with it. So we just send the emails over to servicing. Hey, can you help this person with whatever? But I just don't have my ear to the ground on that.
No worries. What are y'all seeing in terms of originations? Are you still seeing the same flow as before? Are investors still coming in at the same rate? Are new, homeowner occupied people coming in at the same rate, or is it slowing down? What's it looking like there?
Well, we were crazy busy last year for all kinds of reasons, mainly refinancing. But we kind of cut off the refinancing around June or July, and we still were doing 100 loans a month. I think people saw that the rates were low and they're stuck at home. Let's go buy a vacation home. We're starting to see a large increase with second homes and vacation homes. And this Airbnb concept, really, people are really trying to grab that. I think, Aaron, how's that build coming for you on your Airbnb?
We're getting there slowly but surely.
How much longer you got?
Probably still about 6 to 8 months. So
Yeah.
we're just getting the foundation going and everything like that. But yeah, the Airbnb model, attractive to myself. We've seen, over the past 4 or 5 months, I think we've definitely seen the amount of apps increase that we've seen people coming in, try to do the second home or the Airbnb model, which we can run with all day long.
Yeah. And it works. And a lot of times lenders say we don't do Airbnbs. Well, it's an investment property, okay? Or it's a second home. Now, this is where it gets a little gray, is because second homes were one of the most fraudulent loans back in 2008, where people would say, yeah, I'm going to buy this as a second home, never move in it, never walked in it, and eventually just put a tenant in it. So after the 2008, the underwriters were a little skittish and they were very protective, and they used to have the 50-mile rule, which I think that's still in place. You can't have it, less than 50 miles from your house or whatever, or, it has to be more than 50 miles away. But like the stuff going on in Florida, even around campuses, we're seeing people buying houses around campus. Think about it. When the son and daughter graduate from the high school, they want to interview these campuses. Well, the family goes up and stays for several days or a weekend or whatever at these houses right near the campus. So we're doing a lot of those. We're doing a lot of stuff down in Florida. A lot of people are doing the second homes, and they're occupying it for a certain period of time throughout the year. And while they're not there, they're renting it out. So the popularity is gaining a lot of ground. And I know, Adam, and you and your team are doing a lot of that down in the Florida area. It's just exploding on the second home and the Airbnb. It really is.
Yeah. Are there any, you mentioned that it kind of nebulous, but are there any general guidelines that they give for what it takes to qualify as, like, when you can start? Let's say you want to put a long-term tenant in there at some point. Are there any rules about that?
There's really nothing etched in stone. It kind of gets into a gray area, even though the signing documents does say that you'll be occupying that property for a certain time period, whatever it is. I don't even know what the days are.
Yeah, I think, to the latest of my knowledge, just to step in, Graham, I think it just says for, a majority of the year. It doesn't even put a hard date count on it. So to your point, it's kind of a gray area, but they are required to sign that document in closing saying that they will occupy it and truly use it as a second home.
And thank you, Aaron. And see, and that's where, and I just had this conversation yesterday because somebody is asking this direct, just like you are. And it's truly a gray area. It's hard to explain. You just got to know there is that document at the closing that you'll have to sign. But let's say the guy does use it as a true second home for 3 or 4 or 5 years. He may eventually just move into it full time, or he may just say, I'm just going to put a long-term tenant. I don't want to do Airbnb. We have no control over that. There's no police out there governing this. Okay. The bottom line is, as long as they're making the payment, that's all we care about,
Yeah. They're not going to knock on the door and say, who's living here? They're going to say, are we getting paid?
Yeah, exactly. So it's not as scrutinized as it was back after 2008, but a lot of increase there. We're still seeing a pretty good demand for investment properties. People are hungry to buy. They just, need some inventory. That's where you guys come in.
Yeah. So let's go into y'all a little bit. I mean, you were talking, Graham, that you've been buying builds right now, and you're looking at investment properties. Aaron, we just talked about how you're doing your Airbnb property. Kind of what's making y'all so confident in the market right now that y'all are buying?
Go for it, Aaron. I'll give you mine later.
Well, I mean, like Graham said, we have continued to remain in a great rate environment that is, of course, attractive. Being, this is exactly what me and Graham do, live and breathe all day long. We see, borrower after borrower, property after property come through where it's, a success, it's a win for the borrower. It's, another property on their list to try to get to 20 or 30 or 10 or 5, whatever it might be. So just seeing the, kind of combination, depending on the property, the market, of potentially cash flow or appreciation, just seeing the numbers, and the numbers don't lie on these things. We've seen it time and time again. After we close, we've seen borrowers come back to us after a couple of years, let us know about their properties, how they're doing great, how they're ready for another one. So, being in this for coming up 7 years now, just kind of living and breathing it all day long and seeing time after time it being successful for a variety of different people in a variety of different situations. That's what kind of drew my attraction to it. And why, I jumped in with both feet. So that's kind of my perspective, coming into the industry 5-6 years ago.
I'm going to kind of clone what he said. I've been at it for a little bit longer. I've been doing it for 24 years, and I keep seeing these tax returns come across my desk and all this inventory on Schedule E, and kind of going, what do these guys know that I don't? Nothing. They're just doing it. And so I jumped in, as Aaron said, feet first, about 16 years ago, and bought a little condo for $30,000, a sight unseen from my accountant, believe it or not. And it was funny because once you dip your toe in the water, and I'll tell all the newbies out there, once you dip your toe in the water, you're going to get that itch, and you're going to get want to buy more and more. Yeah. Because they're very skittish, and they're very nervous about doing, it's out of state, and I can't see the property, I can't touch it, and all this other stuff. Who cares? I've had inventory here in Dallas and Fort Worth that I hadn't seen in 3 years. I don't care. I care about getting that money and the, every month. And I care about the manager taking care of the property. That's all I care about. So, but, I did. Once I took my toe in the water that first year, I ended up buying 8 the rest of the year. And I ended up buying 1. I didn't even tell my wife, and I should have never done that. Because
told her or not told her?
Yeah, she came to me around September and says, "Don't you think you want to slow down? You're buying enough this year." I said, "Okay." And then somebody came to me, and got, "Man, I get this great duplex. You really ought to take a look at it." So in this industry, and I don't know if I should say this, I guess I should say it the right way. When you're doing an owner-occupied transaction, most of the requirements are both the husband and the wife have to be on the loan. But the husband can go buy real estate and then doesn't have to tell the wife, and vice versa. It's a fact. Okay. And so I went and bought the house and the duplex, and I never told her. For about a year later, I must have had a couple glasses of wine or something, but it came out. And so she holds that over my neck. That's her trump card when she needs it. But my point being is, when you start seeing the success that you're having versus looking at your 101k versus your 401k, the numbers are there. It makes sense. I've got 2 closings coming up tomorrow. I'll be right at 40, and my goal is to get to 50. And people, are saying, "Wow, that's great." And I said, "Yeah, if I can get there, but I had a heart attack trying to get there." But no, it's been interesting. It's been challenging, finding the inventory, but I think it's going to be my retirement. That will be it. I mean, I think it's one of the best ways to have a passive income.
I can't even imagine those conversations. Honey, did you really spend this much money on that? You remember when you bought a house?
It was more fun than breaking wind in church, I'm telling you.
Well, let me ask this. We talked about how, back in the COVID time, people were buying homes and they were getting rates at, homeowner occupieds were getting them, around 2% at some point?
They were down 2, yeah.
2.5. Is that going to crunch inventory in the future? I mean, I can't imagine too many people wanting to buy something else and being willing to give up a 2% mortgage to, move to something similar to what they are. Do you think that's going to shorten inventory in the future as well?
I think, that's kind of hard to say. Regardless of what the rate was when they got it, people usually are trying to upgrade their lives, having more children, making more money. The average home stay for the first, second, even third time home buyer is 3 to 5 years. So it's not really a rate contingency. Yeah, there's probably going to be some people out there going, "Man, I feel so warm and fuzzy with that 2.5% rate. I'll never get rid of my house." But then you got the wife over here and say, "Let's go over there and look at this house." I don't think it has anything to do with rates. If you got the rates back then, if you haven't refinanced during the COVID, then you were asleep at the switch.
Yeah, that's definitely true. So aside from Florida, what are some of the areas where y'all are seeing the most investor applications coming in your network?
Help me out here. And I'm going to say Florida.
Florida, we've had quite a few I've seen in Indianapolis the past couple of weeks. Seemed like we've had a nice little surge come through that way. Memphis is usually strong for us. Baltimore's been great the past couple of months. Yeah. Kansas City still going strong there.
Memphis is always a good, strong market. Little Rock, Cincinnati, even Chicago for that matter. I'm personally in buying down in Alabama. I think Alabama was a great market.
Yeah.
And we're doing a fair share down in Alabama as well, down in Birmingham. I'm personally up in Montgomery market, but I think Huntsville, Montgomery, and Birmingham are still going pretty strong. They don't have quite the appreciation that the Floridas will. And, a lot of times I'll get, talking to clients as well, "I'm buying because I want to get appreciation and cash flow." I'm going, "Really? Tell me where you're buying for that." Because you can't have your cake and eat it too. It's just not real. Florida comes close. Don't get me wrong. But I mean, I'm buying strictly for cash flow first. If I can get that appreciation to come in afterwards, great. I'll take it. That's icing on the cake. But I mean, for those equity plays, those things were back in 2008 in California when you were buying dirt cheap, 10 cents on the dollar. You just don't do that these days.
Yeah, you can find some equity, you can force some equity into those properties. But I will say, when I first heard about investing in Alabama, I think I was with the majority of society where I thought, Alabama, what kind of backwoods place are you talking about buying? And then I started researching Alabama, and it's a lot more than just your local hillbillies out
It
there. I
is.
mean, you want to talk about appreciation.
Huntsville's great.
Huntsville has massive potential for appreciation. They just got another big defense contract that
Really? Okay.
they got the big space contract a couple months ago. They've got the big military bases there, and the people there make a ton of money. I mean, a
Yeah.
ton of money there. So
And I
it's
think there's a lot of stuff going on in Birmingham right now as
yeah.
well. I think
Yeah,
Amazon's
Birmingham's got
coming in there.
manufacturing coming out the
Yeah.
ears.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then Montgomery, you have the capital and all the, let's be honest, government work's not going anywhere.
They're great renters. I mean, you got the base there too. I've got 100% occupancy there on my properties. It's a great market.
Yeah. So is there anything you want to tell potential investors or new investors before we wrap it up here?
No, if you are a little nervous about trying to figure out, can I qualify or can I not? Give us a call, and we'll have myself or Aaron or whoever. We'll talk to them, and we'll just do a simple application, because it's just simple. We take a look at your credit, how much money you have, and how much money you make, and the rest is all math. Okay.
Mhm.
Once we get you pre-approved, it's really simple. It takes only a couple of days. And then when you're ready to go, of course, you'll be getting in touch with Adam or one of the retirement representatives. Then you just go out, write a contract, and we'll close after that. So it's not as daunting or scary as you think. Just because you're working with a great team at Rent to Retirement, one of the best in the country. Just got to work with a good lender, and I think we're probably the one to do that for you.
Before we wrap it up, let's touch on the pre-approval. You talk about it takes a few days to get, which, in the grand scheme of things, a few days is nothing. It lasts for what, 4 months, right? And talk about that process a little bit. Like when you're pre-approved, kind of what's the timeline like there?
When we get the application, we pull the credit once. It is a hard pull, okay? And the credit lasts for 120 days. And once we get all your income and asset docs, and within that short period of time, we say, okay, you're good to go. And then if you don't find anything in that 120 days, we don't pull the credit again. We wait until you actually find a contract, and then we have to repull it again. But having a credit pull once every 3 or 4 months for people that are buying investment properties is hardly going to sneeze at the credit scores. We did a survey, back in March when this whole thing was coming down. And the last was about 2,000 loans, Aaron, that our average credit score for our customers were 772. Wow. Seriously. So those kind of, and people that have that credit score, they want to maintain it, and it's good for them. But those little inquiries from here and there, hardly going to sneeze. But to answer your question, if they don't do anything dramatic, even after 120 days, like go buy a yacht or file bankruptcy or lose their job, they're pretty good for whenever they decide to go, because everything's going to be pretty consistent. Their income is going to still be consistent. They're going to have the money in the bank. All we do is that, once we get a contract, let's say 6 months down the road, we get a contract. Well, fine. Send me a recent pay stub, send me a recent bank statement. You're good to go. So it's really kind of indefinitely.
Yeah. All right. Well, Graham and Aaron, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate working with y'all and all the things you do for our clients. Everybody else, head on over to renttoretirement.com. You can reach out to us, and we will get you connected with Graham and his team to get you started on the pre-approval process, so you can find the properties to get you to 40 or 50 like Graham, or 1 or 2 just to get started. So renttoretirement.com. You can also check out all of our inventory there. You can reach out to any of the investment counselors there or investment strategists there, and you can, schedule some stuff. We've got lenders, we've got, insurance, we've got asset protection, anything you need, we're happy to help you with. That's renttoretirement.com. Please go to your podcast platform, leave us a review, let us know what you think of the show. We would really appreciate it. If you have any questions or anything you want us to cover on the podcast, reach out, podcast@renttoretirement.com. That's podcast@renttoretirement.com. We'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for watching the Rent to Retirement YouTube channel. Check out some of our other videos, like this one, or this one here.